Salty and Dave on the mic, let's go. Talking about bands from days of old. Sunset Strip stories unfold in the city of stars, rock and roll. Hollywood dreams, oh yeah. Stories from the city of angels. Sandy and Dave, bringing the past to the air.
Hey guys, welcome to the Hollywood Dreams podcast. This is your host Santi, along my fellow host Dave. Dave, how are you?
I'm good, Santi. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm doing all right. And welcome Stuart to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be
Awesome.
here.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's an honor having you here. We're happy for you to be here. So for those listening that may not know who Stuart is, Stuart was a sorry, Stuart is a Canadian keyboardist. You play other instruments, right, or just keyboards?
Lots of instruments.
Lots of instruments. So multi-instrumentalist, Stuart Zaltz from a few great Canadian bands. For example, Wall of Silence, got the album here. Uh, TheWorks, and a few others that we'll talk about during this episode. So, once again, Stuart, thank you for being on the show.
All good.
Yeah. So I mean, let's just start with. I mean, I guess from the beginning, right? I mean, what got you into music? What drove you like made you wanna be a musician?
Wow, it goes way, way back. It literally started when I was about 3 years old. I had an older brother who was taking piano lessons. He hated it. And one day I literally climbed up on the piano and started playing, discovered I could play by ear. And then,
Yes.
yeah, soon after that, discovered I had perfect pitch, which was made life very easy for picking up cover tunes.
Hmm.
And started taking piano lessons at 3.
Nice. I mean, yeah.
How did you
I
stay focused on that at age 3?
You
That's
don't think
impressive.
about it. You don't even think about it. You just, you know what? I love to play, and we had a piano in the house, and it was something you'd just get up and start playing. And
right.
with the ear, I'd hear something on the radio, go and sit at the piano and play it.
Wow,
Um,
that's
and
impressive.
it's
That's
uh, it's a gift. It's not impressive. It's a gift. I was very lucky to have it.
Wow,
yeah.
so you're
I,
you're
I have
basically born to do this.
right. Yeah,
Definitely.
I have a friend who's like that. He has like he can tell anything in what tone is like any type of sound, and it's funny because he always goes like, "Listen, do you listen to that lawnmower? That's an E, like an E minor."
My fridge buzzes at B flat. I get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what what's TheWorks your first like formal band, or did you had
I pl-
anything
I
before that?
played in a bunch of bands before the works.
Hmm.
Um, you know, mostly cover bands, and did a lot of touring because back in those days, at least in Canada for sure, you could play all the time. Live music was 7 nights a week, 6 nights a week, and to tour, you could play 50 weeks a year and actually make a living playing. So I did that right up until I was about 22, and then went back and studied music for 4 years. So never out of music, but always doing different things. And the works spun off. My third year of university is when I met Jimmy and Brian, and we all started working together. And by the time I was out of school, we were cataloging material.
Hmm.
Nice, nice, nice. I mean, it is that album you guys put out 1989. It's a great record, and it went it went like gold in Canada, right? Or plat? What's the?
Close to gold in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Moved some units in the UK, moved some units in Europe, but um, didn't have a great success with the record company.
Hmm.
Uh, you know, they were very good to us while we were making the record, and they were less good to us when it came out.
Yeah,
The
well,
way,
it happens, right? I
of
mean,
course,
yeah,
yeah, it is the way it is.
yeah,
What record company were you guys with?
A&M,
You were with
mm,
A&M.
yeah, for the first album, and then as that was happening, Polygram bought A&M,
Hmm.
and soon after Polygram bought A&M, Universal bought Polygram. So
right.
I got to be with three labels over 5 years without signing deals.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And so I mean, this is of course the Hollywood Dreams podcast. So we tend to have guests from Los Angeles or California in general, but so we don't have like a we don't get that many guests that for part of a different scene other than the Hollywood scene, right? So, what was the Canada music scene back in those days like?
It's a
Oh, at
good,
least the part where you were from, yeah.
you know what? It was a good scene back when, there were a lot of good bands happening around the same time.
Mm,
Um, it's funny back then. I mean, that's a long time ago. Things were different back then. Bands kept to themselves. There wasn't a whole lot of writing outside of your unit.
right.
When we were writing with other people, it was generally set up by the record company, and we'd go and work with established writers. But it wasn't like two bands got in a room together and wrote songs. So um, it's a lot different back then.
Hmm.
But the scene was great. The scene was, there's a lot of good venues to play live. Touring is difficult in this country because it's so big.
Right.
Uh, you know, our first tour with TheWorks, um, we jumped on a tour bus in Toronto. We did, I don't know, 15 or 16 dates, and we were gone for like a month. You know, should be able to do that in 2 weeks.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's just
Right.
so far between, you drive 10 hours to get to a gig. So there's a lot of downtime.
Yeah. Who
So, so
did you guys hook up with any like what tours come to mind that you guys like? Did you guys open for a lot of different
Open
bands or?
Uh, we did a bunch of like co-headlining tours. We worked with Honeymoon Suite,
Hmm, okay.
um,
nice.
Kim Mitchell from the old Max Webster days.
Hmm.
Um, we did an opening act tour when the album first came out. We did an opening act tour from Ontario west to BC with Luba. I don't know if you remember her.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, it was kind of a mismatch, but turned out to be a great tour, and they were all great people. So we did
Hmm.
an opening for them on the way out, and then on the way back, we headlined our own tour on the way back. So those were really good shows,
Cool.
good times.
Cool. Cool. But so when you guys went off to record the album, the Works album, uh, the label took you guys to the States, right? They got you with who was it? Like Tom Allen, who worked with
Yeah,
like Kiss.
Tom did our
Yeah,
first album,
yeah.
and we recorded at Criteria in Miami. Funny, we went for 3 months. That was the idea, and what we were going to do was a little bit of pre-production, and
Hmm.
then go into the studio and record. We left, if I recall, it was November of '89,
Hmm.
and we got home in August of '90. We were there for about a year.
Wow.
We started doing pre-production, and then the next thing you know, we're writing new tunes, and we'd rented a house, and so we set up a little studio in the house. Tom would come over every day. We'd write some more material, drop a song, add a song, drop two songs, add two songs, and then finally started recording and ended up pretty much a year there.
So
Great
it's
year.
funny that they took you guys to Miami instead of like LA, would seem like a more
Uh,
typical. Yeah.
Two reasons. One, Tom had a long relationship with Criteria.
Mm.
And I don't know if you know much about Criteria, but it is a world class, amazing studio.
Okay.
And tons of, I mean, it's been around since the days of Aretha Franklin and James Brown and the
Hmm.
Eagles and Ted Nugent. And I mean, hundreds and hundreds of gold and platinum records recorded there. Hundreds.
Right.
Uh, yeah, so a good time down there. And so
Mm.
Tom had you know, I mean, he had an office there.
Right. Makes sense.
So it was,
Mm.
LA was a thought. I mean, we mixed some of the second record in LA,
Hmm.
uh, but criteria for us was, I mean, we were up here in the cold Canadian winter, and when the record company says, "Hey, you want to go to Miami to record an album?"
you
Where
don't
do we
you
sign?
don't think twice. Yeah.
No, where do we sign? We're ready to go.
Where's the plane?
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm. That's awesome. So did, did, did you do most of the writing for the album, or was it like a shared responsibility?
Yeah, the three of us were really. When I met Jim and Brian, they had been in another band previous, um, and they brought a few songs to the table that we sort of did some rearranging on them and stuff like that. And then the rest of it was the three of us writing,
Hmm.
uh, and the bass player and drummer were basically hired guns.
Right.
Became part of the band for certain that once we started touring, but while we were down in Miami, it was generally the three of us.
Right. 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 Nice. So what happened between that and the Wall of Sight? Why did you guys? Was it like a label thing, like a I don't know, like a copyright thing? Or what did you decided to leave like drop the Works name and turn it into Wall of Silence?
Well, it's been a long time, so we can be very honest and open about it. Wasn't our doing.
Right.
Record company came to us one day and said they felt like we had run our course with the works at radio, and they felt like they had pushed pretty hard, and felt like if they started pushing another record, that radio wouldn't be receptive. Um, and frankly, we fought them. We were not happy about name change because for us, we'd spent 2.5 years building up the name, so we
Mm.
did have some pretty decent recognition in terms of what we knew about radio, and we didn't feel like it was going to be a problem. But when you have a record company paying for the record,
Yeah. Pretty
you
much
know,
do what they want to do. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, or you don't do the record, and
Yeah.
certainly that
Mm.
was an option. But we had some good songs, and so
The
uh,
great songs. Yeah.
yeah, we were wanted to do another record.
Now,
So
did the record company give you the name, or did you guys at least have the choice to come up with the name?
We had the choice. I mean, we
Okay.
came up with the name. Their directive was you need a new name,
hmm.
and you argue that point for a few minutes, and then you kind of finally just say, "Fine, and we'll come up with a new name." And we came up with a new name. And funny, when the works first came out, there was a, a number of things called the works in Canada, and there was some questions about whether or not it was going to be drug related and things like that, and
Right.
so we had that fight with them as well, but we won that fight, which was good.
Mhm.
uh, and for us, the works was really more about music.
Right.
That's why we called it the works. It wasn't had nothing to do with anything else.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, when you listen to the music, you can really tell it's made by people who actually know what they're doing. It's not like some party band like would just release an album, right? It's it's really complex stuff in terms of musicianship. So yeah, and I also like the Wall of Silence name. I think it's a fun play on the whole Wall of Sounds, and it is that second album. It is. I mean, and I was talking about this the other day with another friend of mine. I think if this album came out like I don't know 3 years earlier than 92, I mean, it would songs like well, Addicted, which was a single, of course, but also Last Night, songs like Last Night or Addicted. I mean, those were big hits in 88, 89. Um,
Timing
yeah.
was terrible. You know what? It's funny. Nirvana was coming out, grunge was starting to happen.
Hmm.
Uh, the record company, I remember when we were finishing up recording this Wall of Silence record,
Hmm.
there was so much push from the record company to find the next Nirvana.
Right.
And so, not just us, but anybody in our sort of rock vein was just getting shelved. You
Yeah, it was
know,
like you guys are like the devil. Like,
yeah, yeah,
nope, stay away. Which is
Well,
unfortunate because there were a lot of bands that were really putting out good stuff back then, especially around that time.
agreed.
And it's it's cool now that we can look back at it and the music is still there and people are discovering it now through the internet and shows like this that try to keep the music out there and keep it
Absolutely.
in people's heads because it deserves to be heard for sure.
You know what? Every once in a while, I mean, you guys are a perfect example of that. Every once in a while, I hear, oh man, the works, Wall of Silence. And
mhm.
it's literally, 30 years ago. It's
Yeah,
like a long time ago.
it
Yeah,
is. Hmm.
yeah.
Uh,
Like the two songs that stick out to me are actually back to back on the album. um Edge of a Heartbreak and It's Only Love. I'm a big ballad guy, so those songs to me are just you know It's Only Love is a great ballad, and like Santi was saying, that would have been a hit a couple of years earlier. That would have been a hit. It would
I
have been
don't
it would
disagree.
have been right up there with like the album reminds me a lot of Giants Last of the Runaways.
Interesting.
um
Yeah. So
they,
around the
they,
same time.
around the
Yeah.
same time, and you had Jim Huff, they had Dan Huff.
Yep.
um both great musicians, both great writers, producers, everything.
You,
And
you know who loved that song? Nuno Betancourt loved that song.
Really? Oh,
it's,
really? Uh-huh.
it's a
Funny
great one.
uh, when that record came out, Extreme was out,
Mhm.
and they were playing. I was at the time living in Hamilton, outside of Toronto. Extreme was touring, playing at Cops Coliseum in Hamilton. Nice venue. I'm at home. Phone rings, and it's Nuno Betancourt.
Nice.
I've never met him before. I don't know him. I know who he is.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, Stuart. I'm like, yeah. He's like, Nuno Betancourt. I'm like, holy shit. It's like, I got your number from the guys at A&M Records and just wanted to know if you'd like to come down to the show tonight. Uh, he loved Mike Slamer.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Uh, and Mike was a hell of a good, well, still is a hell of a guitar player.
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, we all went down, and he really liked the Wall of Silence record. I mean, he could tell Mike's influence on the record for sure.
Mhm.
Well, he
Yeah.
has that like Mike Slammer like vibe, right? Like all those '90s albums that he put out with all his bands have a similar vibe, and like it's really well produced and polished, and it's really guitars are really sharp, and everything sounds exactly like it's supposed to sound. So
Yeah,
and
he's
it
slick.
has yeah, it
Mhm.
has a good every song has its like stadium rock atmosphere to it, which is it is exactly the sound that I like the most. So yeah, it's great. Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard the cover that they did of Addicted, Steelhouse Lane.
Oh yeah, it's the first album. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, 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 yeah. I
Yeah,
have that album as well. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, all of his stuff is awesome, and but yeah, I also am a big like power ballad guy. So on Sunny Low, it actually reminds me like something like the I don't. I promise I'm not like ass kissing or something, but it sounds like something that Queen would put out or something like that, almost, right? I mean, it has that sort of like really heartfelt ballad vibe, and yeah, it's really good, and but yeah, I definitely would have been ahead like 3 years earlier or something like that.
Easily.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Edge of a Heartbreak's a great song too. I think we
Yes.
co-write.
I really like that song. That's something about that second track on all the album. Like I don't know, Santi. I think we had this discussion once
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
It's something with those that second song on the album. On a lot of albums, that's kind of what hooks me in. If that second track is good, then I'm there for the
Interesting.
duration of the album. And that Edge of a
Mhm.
Heartbreak definitely was like, okay, I'm in.
But but we also grew up with records, right? We grew up when you listen to full songs and records,
Hmm.
where you're not listening to a 30-second snippet, or you're not listening to a single, or you're not listening to something on Spotify, or
Yeah.
I just find,
Mhm.
you know, people consume music so differently today.
Mm.
Yeah.
Uh, and not in a bad way, just in a different way.
Definitely different. Yeah, definitely different. And it makes nowadays I guess it's irrelevant like where a song falls in an album because they just don't release albums anymore. So
Yeah, you don't get that. But back then, man, it was important. It was essentially every album is basically a concept album. It's what the artist was putting together at that time. You want those songs are put in an order for a certain reason, and for whatever reason, artist does it, and it's like the whole albums as a whole. It's really what
yeah, and
really
I think
brings
it's
you
great
into it.
how in that sense I think it's great how after the ballad you pick up the rhythm with Last Night, which is like
Mhm.
it starts with that little guitar and it brings you up and hey okay we were sad but now we're gonna party a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
bit,
okay.
right? Yeah.
That's one of my favorite tunes.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it sounds like it would be so much fun to hear it live or something like that. Yeah, it's a great song, great song. It has a really catchy hook with all those backing like Def Leppard backing vocals. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a co-write with Tom DeLuca.
Oh, nice.
Hmm.
Yeah, great guy too.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, I guess we have the same conversation with every guest we have here, but um, a lot of the times we get like the same comment, like people, the labels would tell band members that, hey, you gotta change your look, you gotta change your sound, you gotta like after the Guns N' Roses hit it big, the labels were just trying to get that biker rock like look and sound, and everybody had to be that way. So were you guys ever approached with like by someone saying, hey, you guys gotta change your sound, you gotta change your look, you gotta be more like this?
Well, you know what? For us, it was more, after the name change,
Hmm,
there was never any real discussion about what we looked like or how we presented ourselves. It was we were what we were. The
right.
Mhm.
challenge was all this other stuff was happening.
Which is
Uh,
like this.
yeah, that was us. We set the hair alarm off every day. Um, yeah, I mean, we all had long hair. We all wore rock clothes, and that's how we sort of, but that's what we were. I remember, I remember, like pretty much the day we signed our deal with A&M. One of the A&R guys, who will remain nameless, said to me, "Okay, you're signed now. you don't go out of the house without being ready. Like you don't go to the corner store in sweatpants. You don't wear a pair of shorts.
Right.
You go to the store decked out.
Right.
And we had, the record company sort of said, this is how you live your life while you're signed to the label.
Hmm.
Uh, and so we did. Now, in terms of, giving us direction to change, was too late because the change for them was the name, and they weren't controlling what was happening in the music industry in terms of Nirvana and all the next wave of grunge and all of that.
Yeah.
So for them, I would have never seen them coming to us and saying, okay, go write a grunge record. What
Hmm.
they do is they'll just go look for the next grunge band. And in fairness, music was changing back then. The budgets were changing, and both records for A&M and Universal, considering the times, were big budget records. I mean, we were a year in Miami. Second album we recorded at Eastern in Toronto, and mixed at Devonshire in LA.
Hmm.
So they were not shy spending money for us. We did video, 2 videos in the first album, 3 videos in the second album. And those days, there were no iPhones. There were no, you couldn't make a video for 5 grand. And today I believe, and I've seen
Hmm.
evidence, you can make a great video for 5 grand today. Uh,
I mean, you can make a video with your iPhone nowadays, and it will look good, but it will not
exactly.
like yeah.
Our first videos for Dancing on a Wing and Love is a Dangerous Weapon, those are like $100,000 videos.
Right. Yeah.
And that was sort of the going rate. It wasn't like we were special. It was just that's what it cost.
Hmm.
And I remember getting to the sound stage for the Dancing on the Wing video, and walking in, and there's like 50 people in there working. And so you realize where the budget goes.
Hmm.
Yeah, big changes.
So this is something I've always wanted to ask. So when you are making a video, or I mean, in your case, when you guys made the music video, are you guys like all like did, do they put like the song in the background, or you just pretend like what's the deal there? How is it
Yeah,
made?
you're lip syncing,
You're lip syncing, okay, yeah.
100%. There's a playback, and you're lip syncing. I mean, our instruments, were plugged in, but they're not recording.
Right.
Hmm.
And the idea being, you got to get really good at lip syncing.
Hmm.
You don't literally, you don't want it to look like shit. You want it to look
Right.
great, and you want it to look like you're playing live, and you want it to look spontaneous, and you want it to look appealing, and
Hmm.
not, you don't ever want anybody, oh man, they're lip syncing.
No, of course, no, yeah.
But yeah, that's how it goes. That's the
Yeah,
reality.
yeah, it's
Now, were
fun.
those long video shoots, or did you guys just go in, knock it out, and
They were like 12-hour days.
Oh wow.
I mean, it's not like you're on set for 12 hours, but you know, they'll do a shot, a sequence of shots, and you're on stage for an hour and a half, and then there's an hour of setup time,
Hmm.
and then you do another hour and a half, and then there's lunch that's catered, and everybody's sitting around having a great time, and then it's set for the next shot, and it's like 3 or 4 days of that. So
Yeah,
it's,
By
and
the by the
oh
end of
no.
it, you just hate the song.
you don't love it.
Now, you guys, now I thought I read that you guys for the second album, you did the 3 videos back to back, like back to
Yeah,
back, back to back.
yeah,
Is that how that was? So
that's how
that
that
had to
was.
be, was that supposed to be a trilogy of videos, like specifically?
Yeah, it was supposed to be.
Yeah, and
Not
what, the third one never got released?
Did not. I guess we can tell this story because it's a pretty good one. So we were
Sweet
not,
dreams, we love it.
yeah, we were not thrilled about doing a trilogy.
Mhm.
And the reason being, um, we were not thrilled with who got hired as director. And that was kind of the record company coming to us saying, we want to hire this guy.
Mhm.
We had had some initial discussions with a really amazing director that we wanted to use, that was willing to, work within our budgetary, and record company didn't see it our way. And so we ended up having to go with the uh, director that they wanted, which was whatever. So they came to us with storyboards, and I wasn't buying it. I don't think any of us were buying it.
Was like too
And
cheesy or something like that.
yeah, it was just, it didn't make sense. It was like,
Mm,
this isn't what we're about. And uh, I remember, uh, I mean, the locations were great. The gear that they were using, everything was very professional. It wasn't like that. It was just
mm,
the storylines were
mm.
stupid.
Mhm.
And so, we went back. So anyway, we did the first three videos. We looked at the first video, it got released. We looked at the second video, it got released. The third video was terrible.
Hmm.
Uh, and at the time, the record company went to, in Canada, it was Much Music, sort of the
Right.
MTV of Canada. So they go to Much Music, and Much Music is not adding the video. And we are thrilled that they're not adding the video. We don't want people to see it. And long story short, they start pulling strings at Much Music to get the video played. And so in the background, somebody that we knew started pulling strings to not get it played.
So you had a
And
nice tug of war going.
yeah, the record company didn't know it at the time.
Mhm.
And unless somebody's watching this when you put it out, they're never going to know. And frankly, it's 30 years ago. I don't care.
You're right.
But
Yeah,
we had
it
somebody,
is what it is now.
exactly. We had somebody lobbying on our behalf to make sure that it didn't get played. And at the end of the day, it didn't get played.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good.
Um, and funny, so when we looked at the third video after they edited and sent us the final cut, I remember having the conversation with at the time, it was the president of, would have been Polygram at that time, Joe Summers. Jerry LaCourcier at that point, who was the president, became the chairman.
Mm.
And Joe and I had I'd say a very, very good relationship. We shared the same birthday, actually. And for years, even after we were signed, we shared a phone call on our birthday. It was lovely, and a great guy. And I remember going to him and saying, Joe, the third video is for It's Only Love. I'm like, Joe, the video's terrible. Like, we can't put it out. He's like, he looks at me, he's like, well, my kid loves it. And I'm like, well, your kid's 9 years old. I mean, it's like, who went on to become an executive, which music executive, which makes it even funnier. But he agreed after we argued. We didn't argue. After we discussed for a long time, he agreed to kick in some more budget for us to go re-edit and do some additional footage.
Mhm.
So we were very happy when he committed to that. But basically, the money went to the same director, who also
Right.
then chose the new footage, which was as bad as the old footage.
Oh, God.
So
So those videos are out there somewhere, and I'm gonna find them.
yeah, funny enough, I've not seen the It's Only Love video.
Yeah, I've scoured the internet because I wanted to find any sort of videos from the Wall of Silence here, and I could not. It's not on
Yeah, I didn't
YouTube.
see any.
Yeah, it's really hard to find if it's out there. I mean, it must be out there. Everything is on the
I
internet.
might have seen maybe one of the first two back in the day on Much Music, but I don't see anything now. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
it,
I mean, Dancing on a Wing, first two records, Love is a Dangerous Weapon, both those videos got great play.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Uh, we got some really, really solid, from Much Music, Music Plus, and I think some other outlets were playing it as well. But the second, it was just, it was so professional while we were making the Wall of Silence videos. Everything was professional. I mean, the fact that we were not happy with the directors, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Hmm.
the whole thing was as professional as the first videos.
Right.
It's just the subject matter was just not happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
it happens.
It wasn't like well, Guns N' Roses are probably the biggest one that did the trilogy of videos when they did what was it, Don't Cry, November Rain, and then
Right.
Estranged, I think were the
Yeah,
three.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then maybe Queensryche, only other one I could think of from the Operation Mindcrime album where they did I Don't Believe in Love and Eyes of a Stranger. And
Is that was that the album produced by Paul Northfield?
yes, yep,
Yeah,
Hmm.
great guy.
yeah. You worked with them?
We're potentially going to work with him on the second record.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
He
wow.
was on the list of potential producers. Um, and funny, I went to meet him. He was working with Geddy Lee on, I'm pretty sure it was All the World's a Stage, the live record.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, they were at McClear Place in Toronto mixing, and record company made a meeting for me to go and meet Paul. And I walk into McClear, and
Hmm.
the receptionist is like, "Yeah, they're over in whatever studio it was, and go ahead, he's expecting you." And I go walking in, and who's sitting at the control room at the desk but Geddy Lee? And I'd
Wow.
never met Geddy before,
Right.
and pretty huge fan. I mean, he's massive Canadian artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I got a chance to meet with him, and then Paul was working away, and then we got to meet with him. Unfortunately, it didn't work out timing wise, and uh, you know, the other guys, Jimmy especially, really wanted to work with Mike Slamer, and Jimmy being the guitar player, you know,
Hmm.
kind of
Yeah.
wanted to make sure he was happy as well.
Yeah, and I was watching I went back and I watched, it was a while, like maybe about a month ago. So I was watching a YouTube video with Joey Allen from Warrant, and
Yeah,
he was talking about how Mike came in and was playing parts, and how he was like, how Mike was just, he was like a teacher. He helped those guys, Joey Allen and Eric Turner,
yeah,
work through some harder stuff that they couldn't put together, but Mike didn't look at it like he said, almost like he was almost like a father, like, kind of working with him and just guiding him through. And he said he learned a lot in a short period of time working with him.
yeah. Mike,
Yeah.
Mike is a good musician.
Hmm.
Um, uh, you know, production wise, it's interesting. I mean, so long ago, my production chops changed drastically after working with Tom Allen.
Mhm.
Uh, I would say, I certainly learned stuff from Mike, no doubt, but I learned a ton from Tom.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I mean, this guy I mean, look at his credits.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
you know, I mean,
Yeah,
Black Sabbath. He did the first Def Leppard record.
he did On Through the
Yeah.
Night. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh,
Judas
My
uh,
Priest.
favorite band. So
well, there you go.
that's
I
pretty
mean,
awesome, man.
yeah, Tom said to me once, after doing the first Def Leppard record, he said, if I had to lose the band to another producer,
Hmm.
Mutt Lange is not a bad guy to lose to.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
But
but
I do like what Tom did on that On Through the Night album. Absolutely. I mean, there's some
oh,
classics on
100%.
that as well.
I mean, look at the Judas Priest records.
Hmm.
I mean, some of the stuff, the stories I heard of how, some of the recordings and how they did them, this guy was so inventive. Uh, he told me a story once of they were recording either in a castle or a mansion or something like this, and they're doing recording drums. And Tom was looking for a specific sound on the snare drum, and he wasn't quite getting it off the snare. And so he basically took the snare and then went into the kitchen and put a microphone at the cutlery drawer and slammed the cutlery drawer and recorded it, and then married those sounds together for the snare sound. Like
That's creative. That's
That is
creative way.
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh,
Now every time I hear, like, that's gonna be like, wait a second.
yeah, exactly. Uh,
That's awesome. I mean, people don't really understand how important like producers were back are to the sound of an album, right? Because a lot of the times, uh, the album without like, I mean, you hear that a band playing before they broke big and had like a big producer. It's sometimes it's so different, right? Like for, I mean, Dr. Feelgood sounds so different to the stuff that Motley put out before him, right?
Absolutely. I mean,
It's so interesting how it changes the sound of a band, right?
right. And I think a lot of that will be how a band reacts to a relationship with a producer,
Mm,
what you're willing to accept, what you know, and these are things, frankly, I learned as I was going. When you pick a producer, you got to kind of understand what he's going to bring to the table.
Mhm.
You don't, if all you want is a guy to record you, then don't have a producer and use an engineer and produce the record yourself.
right.
If you're willing to accept, in Tom's case, the guy's, resume is huge. He's recorded so many huge records. Why wouldn't you listen to him?
Mhm.
Right.
Right. And frankly, the relationship with Slamer was different. Um, to me, Mike was a good producer, but a great guitar player.
Mm,
So he
Mhm.
brought that to the table more so than even production. We used an engineer named Jeff DeMorris for the Wall of Silence record, who's an absolute genius engineer. Got out of the business soon after. He always used to say to me, "Love you, buddy, but one day I'm going off the grid," and he did. He went off the grid.
wow.
Wow.
Uh, Now he surfaced many years later, and he was working in all over the U.S. in national parks doing disaster recovery,
Oh,
like
wow.
like an EMS guy that would go find people out in the woods that were stuck and stuff like that.
He
And
Wow.
then
went like
he
full Chuck Norris into the
basically,
woods.
yeah, and he would do
Yeah.
that all winter long, and then he would go off to some remote island somewhere and chill out for 6 months. Um, but
Amazing.
his involvement in terms of recording was way more than an engineer.
Mm,
Um, and he'd worked on a bunch of records too.
Mhm.
So, for me, it was like when you start working with these people, the idea for me is you take the best of what they can offer and use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
And it,
sure, yeah.
what what's interesting, like from the genre that we cater to, the glam, hair metal,
Yep.
AOR, hard rock, whatever. There were a few names that always came up, like Michael Wagner being one of them.
Yeah.
And I feel like Michael really did a lot of great records. You had Tom Werman was always coming up, Bo Hill. I mean, these
Yeah.
were the names that you would constantly see.
Yep.
Um, Going back to how a producer can really change a band. You had the first two Bon Jovi albums were produced by Lance Quinn.
Yep.
Lance Quinn, not a bad producer, but once Bruce Fairbairn came in and produced Slippery, it was like, there you go. You had Bob Rock and Bruce Fairbairn working on that record.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just you're right. It's amazing what a producer. There's a reason these guys produce records.
100%.
And
100%. And I think, that speaks a little bit to what we hear in music today. Um, when I get turned on by listening to certain music today, it's a lot more about the actual music, the song, the lyrics. Uh, Production is there, but there aren't as many Bruce Fairburns anymore.
yeah.
There aren't many Tom Wermans. I know
Mhm.
Tom a little bit, but there aren't. Those kind of people. It's like writing. Look at a rap album now, and there's 14 writers on a song. Some of the
Hmm.
songs are amazing, but you know what I don't know whatever happened to one or two guys or three people or four girls sitting in a room writing a song. It's now like And I don't know how that works often. I'm assuming that not there aren't 14 people in a room. Somebody's doing a loop and passing it to somebody else, and then they work on it and pass it to somebody else, and then and eventually there are credits for 14 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be something really weird, definitely. Yeah, no, it's definitely, yeah. It sounds it almost like goes back, like it's almost like music went back to the way it was like in the early days, right? Like the Sinatra days. It was sort of like that, right? Like someone would write a song, or a group of people would write a song, and then someone would sing it with, but who had nothing to do with the writing of the song or anything like that. And it was all about like the big producers who created like an orchestra or whatever, and then someone else recorded it. But what I'm trying to say is that it's now more focused. Like people almost don't know who sings a song, and it almost like it doesn't matter in a way, because they hear the song not on the radio, because no one listens to the radio anymore, but they hear the song on TikTok or whatever, and it's not about who plays it. It's more about like the song has its own like it is its own being without like separate from the artist in a way. I think at least that's how I see it. Yeah.
And I see it very similarly. I think that
Mm.
um, it's so different. I mean, our kids, 33 and 27, so they have been consuming music differently than us forever,
Mm.
right? They're old enough that they get what we used to do, but they're also young enough that they've always consumed music on the internet,
Right.
right? They don't know from walking into a record store.
Right.
They don't understand that. They don't understand the tactile,
Mm.
you know, holding on to a CD, or, well, I mean, before that, holding on to an LP.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
funny,
we're
I was,
we're both vinyl collectors, so we still we still do that. So
well, I'll tell you a funny vinyl story. So back in the 70s, I was being a keyboard player, loved Supertramp.
Mm.
And Crisis What Crisis was the sort of first album that I really got into. And I had the LP, and at similar time, 8 tracks came out.
Hmm,
Do you remember 8 tracks?
Yeah.
I do.
I had an 8 track in my car. And I remember, I don't know if you can remember that when it would spin from, it had like four, it would, and the song would fade out and it would click into the next thing, and then it would fade back in.
Yeah, yeah.
So I got so used to listening to, I think it was, and it doesn't matter what track, but one of the tracks, and I got so used to hearing that fade in the middle of the song
Mm.
that when CDs came out and I replaced the 8 tracks with CDs, I'm like listening to this track, and all of a sudden it just kept playing. No fade in, no fade out.
Right.
Yeah,
Funny.
yeah. Well, hey, hang on a second here. I'm gonna pull something out here. Hang on.
Okay, I was afraid you were gonna pull your pants down for a second there, but yeah.
Whatever makes it work.
Whatever brings the money. Yeah.
Here is an 8-track player.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's unbelievable. That is
And
incredible.
I do have some 8 tracks in a box somewhere that I'll have to dig out and show you guys later. And it
That's
worked.
crazy good.
So
That's
it's interesting to. I am gonna fire it up. It has
Does it
this,
still work?
it works, but it's got
Okay.
the odd hookups. Very
Hmm.
old school. So just gotta figure it out. And
Well,
figure out-
The Works record was the last record that A&M put out on as an LP.
really,
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
that is a little bit of
we had that
history.
distinction. Um, I still have a poster somewhere lying around, and in the corner it says available on LP, cassette,
LP.
and CD. And Wall of Silence never came out on LP.
That's a
And
shame. Yeah.
in fact, literally, there were no other LPs done from A&M. I
Right.
mean, who knows what they do now? Because I think there's been a sort of resurgence of.
Yeah, there's been reissues. I've gotten a few off of A&M that were later.
Well, it's universal now, right? Everything is universal
Everything is
records.
Yeah,
universal.
Yeah.
yeah.
So, actually, that's a good point because that was something I was going to ask you about. Over the years, I mean, everyone like Frontiers record, everyone's like re-releasing. I'm sure the people have reached out to you or any other guys to re-release the Wall of Silence album, right? At some point.
Yeah, I mean, there was a re-release in Japan.
Okay, yeah,
Uh,
which is the one that I have. Yeah.
yeah, I thought
Hmm.
I saw that. um, and of course, there are many bootlegs.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, that's part of the music
Yeah, but
business.
Yeah, for the
the
business.
re-release was in like in '99, so I think we
Yeah,
are due for another. Definitely.
yeah. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I don't know actually if you guys know, but Jimmy passed away a few years ago,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is very unfortunate.
Hmm.
Um, so, and Brian's been out of the business for a long time.
Hmm.
So, I don't believe that there would be ever a time when we would support a re-release live.
Right.
Um, that said, I mean, I'd love it. I'd love to see the record come out again.
I mean, on Facebook, I'm part of like a lot of like collectors groups, right? And when I got the album the other day, a few weeks ago, I got the album. I posted it like in one of those groups, and like in 5 minutes, I had like almost like 100 interactions. Right, people were saying, "No, this is a fantastic album. I love it." Everyone was like, I don't know, everyone was really hyped about the album, and I truly believe that if you guys ever decide to actually re-release the album, it will sell out like in no time. It's definitely
There,
that's a given. I'm
there's
yeah.
definitely a fire for that
Yeah.
album, for that music, and
Every time I see it mentioned online, people say the same thing. Yeah, I mean, everyone loves the album. I think also the fact that it was never re-released or there was never another album. It helps with to the mystique of the right, like the mysterious aura around the band and the album in itself. But yeah, there's definitely an audience for it, and
you know what? I'll put it real simple. It's a good fucking album. Period. Rock and roll.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, you know what? Listen, I like the record. Um, for me, it was honestly when we finished recording, I knew
Mm,
we had a good record.
Mm,
I also knew that we were going to have no backing from the label,
yeah,
and
which
I
is
look
bad.
back at it now. I I have no ill will or anything like that. I get it. I mean, back then we were all pretty pissed off.
Yeah.
Um, we put a lot of time and effort into it, and then the record company's turning around saying, "Well, fuck it, you guys are." They never officially drop you. You just sort of ride off into the sunset, and everybody
Mhm.
kisses goodbye, and that's the end of it.
mm, yeah,
No hard feelings from them. It's business for them.
Mhm.
And
yeah,
for me, it was almost like I'd rather not have a, I'd rather have no record deal than a bad record deal.
right.
There's always more record deals to be made.
Mm.
If you've got great music, you can always get signed, or you can always, there's always an avenue somewhere. But to be signed with somebody who's not going to do anything for you, it's a tough one.
Yes,
Uh, you know, it reminds me of Skin and Bones, that tune on,
mm,
that's on Wall of Silence, I think, isn't it?
yeah. Let me
Yeah,
see. Yeah,
it's on,
I think
Skin and
it is.
Bones. Yeah.
Yep, yep,
yeah.
it is. Yeah.
So that was we did that co-write with a guy named Greg Fulkerson.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, from Blue Tears. Yeah,
correct. Who
yeah.
also, unfortunately, a number of years ago passed
That's
away.
why. Yeah.
Great guy. He actually came up to Canada, spent I don't know, a week with us, and we wrote a few tunes together, and that one ended up on the record. But Blue Tears, were they with Columbia? Whatever
Um,
label they were with happened to
I
be Bobby
think
Mottola.
so. Yeah, it was either Columbia or Atlantic, but yeah, one of the
Okay, so the
yeah.
same week that their record came out, Mariah Carey's record came out. And Tommy Mottola was the head of the record label, who was married to her or became married to her.
Right.
And I remember him telling us, we have this beautiful record we just finished and no support from the record label. Because Tommy Mottola called all the marketing people and said, "You're working Mariah Carey's record.
Hmm.
You're not doing anything else other than Mariah Carey's record." And so, through no fault of Greg's,
Right.
they get
Yeah.
no action.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, it's funny because nowadays, I mean, I don't think that's a problem that necessarily would happen nowadays because everything is so compartmentalized, right? Like you don't. I feel like back then everyone had to listen to grunge or listen to Mariah Carey or listen to the same thing. But nowadays there's so much stuff out there that
Well, yeah, and there's record companies are not nearly as important,
exactly, and you
right?
have all these like companies that, for example, Frontiers Records or FNA Records, whatever, they are focused on a specific type of sound, so you don't have that problem where you are competing like with, I don't know, Olivia Newton-John.
Well,
So,
exactly. I mean,
yeah.
listen, again, it's like there are so many places to get music today
Mm,
that a major label, I mean, first, if you sign to a major label, the chances of you making money are zero.
right.
If you if you self-release and you have, smart marketing and good digital presence and you want to tour, you can make a living if you're
Mm,
smart about
yeah.
it. You have to wait above the other 3 million bands that are out there,
Right.
but very doable. I mean, listen, when we signed to A&M, the year that we signed, there were 2,500 bands that submitted tapes.
Oh wow.
They signed two direct. I think they did two or three other sub deals where they came in through other labels and they just did distribution. But can't even remember who the other band was, but there were only two of us who got signed that year.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and so today, when there's 10 times as much music out there, do you want to go up against that at a record label or do you just want to put it out yourself? I mean, you have all these
Yeah.
opportunities.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. No, no, for sure. I mean, it's just a case that back then you didn't have any other option, right? You
No,
couldn't.
and back then it was, the best case scenario was get signed to a major label.
Right.
What
Right.
did everybody's dream was get signed.
Hmm.
That's what everybody was working for.
Isn't
Working
that the
for the
truth?
weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all right. So, but so the things kind of fizzled out after the album came out, or what?
Yeah.
Mm,
We did some minor touring. Um, I think we went out, we probably did, I don't know, 20 or 30 shows. We had no backing from the record company, like
right.
zero. Uh, and when you don't have backing, like, this was in the days when radio was still important, but we had nobody going to radio to fight for us. We were pushing to make sure that the videos didn't get played, so that it wasn't a good time for us.
Right.
And yeah, it was, you know, the three of us were not really getting along that well because things weren't good.
No. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the recording and Wall of Silence recording was hard.
Mm,
It was difficult. I found that uh, it was tense.
mm,
And not like the first album. The first album was, three buddies down in Miami for a year having the best time ever,
mm,
meeting great people. Uh, I mean, it was just, everything was, the studio was buzzing. Gloria Estefan was in the studio. Julio Iglesias was in the studio. There was this awesome Japanese rock band in the studio. We were there. Uh, we just got to meet so many great people. And Wall of Silence was, us going into a sort of studio by ourselves with Mike Slamer. Uh, we felt pressure that we shouldn't have felt, but we did. And it just
Right,
wasn't fun. It wasn't fun.
right, right. Well, you did manage to put out a fantastic product, so that tension definitely did not translate to the music, at least.
No, 100%. I don't disagree with you. Everything I've put out, I'm proud of.
Hmm.
I've never put out a record that I've gone, oh man, I should have not done that.
Right.
So I'm quite happy about that.
Yeah, yeah. So on the actually on the Japanese re-release from '99, you wrote up like a little biography, right, of this of all everything we've been talking about, right? The works and everything, right? And you talk about your upcoming solo album here. You say it's gonna be released coming soon, which is funny
Wh-
to see.
Which one? I've done a
It says,
few.
okay, so it says Cast Off.
Yeah, that got released. Completely different than this. Was an
Mm,
instrumental record.
okay,
Uh,
nice.
Tapping into keyboards way more. Um, but again, it was sort of that time when things were changing, and um, it's music. And so for me, one of the things about music for the longest time was,
Hmm.
how am I going to enjoy myself but also make a living?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything else other than music. I
Hmm.
only wanted to make music my career in terms of being able to afford to live while not doing anything else. So I put the record out, did fine. We sold, I don't know, 10,000 copies or something like that. But it was me putting it out, self-produced, self-done. And, I'm not making $1 a record. I'm making $8 or $9 a record, which was great. Um,
Yeah.
didn't tour it at all. And at the time, I started to write music for television.
Okay.
Okay.
So I did that for 10 years. Um, and that was my way of staying in the music industry while still being able to make a living. So kind of like
Nice. Interesting.
yeah. And then did another record, actually, MTM. Do you know that label?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Called Any Day Now.
Any day now. Oh yeah. I haven't heard the album, but I did read about it.
Great singer, Al Langlade. He used to be in a band called, oh crap, he's going to kill me if I can't remember. And I can't remember. I'll come up with it.
Really good
But
stuff.
funny,
Yeah.
I'd known Al for a long time, and MTM reached out to me, wondering whether I wanted to do a record.
Yeah.
And so I called Al because he's a great singer.
Hmm.
And about 2 weeks after we decided we were going to do this together, he moved to Thunder Bay, Ontario, which is
Oh
about
yeah.
24 hours away from me. It's like literally at the top of Ontario.
Yeah.
So now we're just deciding how the hell we're going to be able to pull this off. He's like 24 hours away from me. So we ended up um, flying. He'd fly down, like we'd write and we'd talk on the phone, because this was the internet. I mean, you weren't sending files like you do today.
Hmm.
Uh, so we ended up, you know, I wrote most of the music, but
Hmm.
he'd fly down, come into the studio for a week. We'd do a bunch of vocals. Um,
Total Stranger was the band.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Uh,
We'll edit it. We'll edit it so it seems like you said it.
Thank you. I love that, Santi. Thanks. Uh, Great guy, really great guy, and an excellent voice.
Hmm.
Um, and Actually had done a bunch of writing with Cy Kernan. Do you know Cy?
Mhm.
The
Refresh my
Fix.
memory.
The Fix.
Oh, okay, yeah, the fix. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I have an album. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Good band. Yeah.
yeah, at the time I was, I don't want to say being managed, but some very dear friends of mine in Los Angeles were sort of guiding me a little bit, and they were managing the Fix at the time.
Mm.
And so they reached out to Cy on my behalf, see if he wanted to maybe do some co-writing, and he was all up for it. So I flew down to New York, um, and we ended up working together actually quite a bit. We wrote, I don't know, half a dozen songs together or something.
Mm.
Uh, and Any Day Now, actually, the song "Were You Ever There" was a co-write with him. And
Nice.
then he put out a solo record called Mayfly,
Mm.
and the song Mayfly is a co-write with me.
Cool. Nice. I mean, I haven't. I'm gonna be honest. I haven't heard the album. I do know about it, but I will definitely check it out. I'm interested. Yeah.
There's some decent songs on it. I mean, MTM was, after it was all done, said and done,
Mm.
I think they were hoping that it was going to be a harder rock record,
Mm.
not realizing, of course, that I'm a keyboard player. I mean,
Right.
that's I love hard guitars. I do. And there's lots of hard guitars on the record and there's lots of good guitar solos and stuff, but I'm a keyboard player.
Yeah.
And I love keyboards and I love that layered sound. And
Yeah, yeah, I think there were a lot of Canadian bands like in the early, all through the '90s, actually, right? Putting out those types of like melodic rock albums. Like one of my favorites, for example, is Hermes Karen, right?
yeah,
And and uh, and they put out great music by the end of the decade, which still sounded very melodic and had not that many keyboards, but some keyboards. And well, you guys with the Any Day Now, and but Hanneman Suite, of course. I think, but by that time they were kind of broken up, but I mean, there were a lot of. It seems like in Canada there was a big melodic rock movement, at least, with a lot of bands still producing that sound of through the '90s. Yeah.
yeah, there was, and funny, it was kind of bordered because then you looked at bands like, Tom Cochrane and Red Rider and
Hmm.
bands that were just a little bit more to the softer side, but still had that edge. Um, and so we kind of all got lumped in together. I mean, Kim
Yeah.
Mitchell
Right.
uh, was a great example of that. Lots of keyboards, and but he was just a massive guitar player.
Hmm.
It's a good scene here. There was a really good scene here for a long time, and there still is. I mean, I'm not involved um, directly in the scene uh, in Canada. It's just every time I think about music, it's just changed so much. If I were young today and trying to do what I did 30 years ago, I don't know that I could do it.
Hmm.
I think it's such a struggle for these young people who are no less talented than anybody else 30 years ago. They're equally as talented and maybe more talented. But the struggle to what's the struggle? The struggle is to get heard. And so you get heard, but you get heard via things like Spotify and Amazon Music and things like that don't pay. Funny enough, I got a royalty statement, which I still, thankfully, still
Hmm.
see a few shekels here and there as I'm going. Uh, Addicted is somehow on Spotify. I don't know
Oh
how.
wow, is it
Hmm.
okay? I'm
And
gonna.
so I got a royalty statement, and they're 9 months behind. So and they're quarterly. So we're talking about a 3 month period. And in my 3 month period, Addicted was played, I think, 48,000 times.
Oh
So
wow,
not a huge
Hmm.
number, but not 5 times.
That sounds
Oh,
pretty good to me.
yeah,
it
no, it
sounds
was.
amazing.
I mean, I looked at the statement and I'm like, is this right? But it was. So at 48,000 plays in 3 months, and my ownership portion was about 20%, 20%, about 25%. We shared, Mike Slamer's a co-writer on the track, and the three of us. So I think there are four writers. So I think we were like at shared four ways. So at 25%, at 48,000 plays in 3 months, what's my royalty?
No, it's gonna be something ridiculous, right?
Here we go.
$2.65.
Oh wow.
Wow.
That's insane. Yeah, that's just crazy. Yeah.
So, on one hand, I'm like, thankfully, this is not how I pay the bills.
Don't spend it all at the same time,
Yeah, I
man.
mean, so as a young guy who, or girl who's putting out music today
Hmm.
and counting on that, you need to be one of those people who's going to get 20 million plays.
Yeah, I think it was Weird Al, right? Who said that like from 2 million listenings or whatever streams, he got like I don't know like $200, right?
Yeah.
And it's insane to think about, right? Because if Weird Al is getting $200 for 2 million plays, what's left for the guys that get like only 100 at the most, right?
The guys that are making 100 plays are getting nothing,
Right. Yeah.
right? I think there's a cutoff that, below a certain number of plays, they're not even paying you.
It must be.
Now,
Yeah. That
you
must be the
know,
case. Yeah.
when we were putting out records back in the 80s and 90s, radio paid, right? If you tracked on radio and you had, especially if you charted, you would see income. You're not seeing retirement income, but you're seeing income.
Some.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like livable income. And that's not the case now.
No. Yeah. Well. Yeah. I mean,
Crazy.
I assume people the bands like make the money from like ticket sales and merch, right? But even that
Sure.
is not like that much. Yeah.
Well, and this is the thing. This is, the secret for me is if you're going to do it, you use Spotify and all of these online portals as advertisement.
Right.
This is
Yeah.
just so people will know you, so that when you come to their town and play, they're going to buy your ticket and they're going to come and buy a T-shirt.
Like pasting your flyer on a wall somewhere.
Yeah, and that's how they're going to be able to tour and be able to afford it.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, you want to go and tour. The larger the tour, the more expensive, the less money you make.
Yeah.
Right? You wonder why there are going to be less arena tours as we go. Insurance has become so bloody expensive. Nobody wants to pay it.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming I don't know what it is where you are, Santi, but I know here it's difficult to tour.
Oh no, yeah, it's the same. I think that's the case everywhere. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's all over the world. It's the same case, and there's venues closing down all every day, and I don't know. It's like people just don't want to go out there out of the houses anymore. It's just want to stay. Like
Yeah. I
we
mean,
are all gonna be like on the movie Wally. Like we're gonna have fat blobs on our
Yeah, well,
couches.
and I think that the kids consume differently than we did.
Yeah,
mhm.
It's not as important for them to, they'd sooner go and sit on a patio rather than go into a club. And frankly, there aren't that many clubs to go listen to live music. When I started
exactly.
playing live, and this is like the 70s, we played 6 nights a week,
Hmm.
Hmm.
like every week. And it was great, and the bars were full, and people came to see you. And even as a cover band, you developed a following, and you'd show up to
Right.
different cities, and you'd be in a 400 or 500 seat club, and it'd be full every night. Uh,
Yeah.
that's not available.
Try to find a bar that's open on a Tuesday night, right?
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah,
it's just not happening.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
another
yeah.
thing I noticed too, like a lot of bands that do tour, being here in the United States, they they'll skip Cleveland. They won't play Cleveland. They'll
Why?
play the outer parts of Cleveland because it's cheaper for them. I don't know
Right.
if it's the insurance or if it's what it is, but a lot of bands will skip Cleveland because we'll go to like Columbus or, other parts of Ohio
Yeah.
where these bands will play. And it's just, yeah, and you don't know it unless you're in a band or you're doing it, what what the real reasons are. But I definitely heard the money thing for sure.
Well,
I,
my guess would be, yeah. I mean, my
Mhm.
guess would be a number of things. Look, you go into the big city, then you're paying big city hotels, you're paying big city parking, you're paying big city
Mhm.
everything. I mean, and we're laughing, so I say parking, but all that shit adds up, as you know. And
Yeah.
so, if you go to a small town outside, your $300 hotel room is $150, but you have 10 rooms,
Mhm.
Right.
right? So all of a sudden, you're saving 10 grand a week on hotel rooms.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Insurance, my guess would be for sure would have something to do with it. And I see that here too. I live about 45 minutes outside of Toronto.
Mhm.
I live in a little place called Ancaster, next to Hamilton, basically.
Mhm.
Hamilton has an arena that's about 18,000 seats. They're actually renovating right now, and I think they're going to renovate to about 17,000. We're seeing more shows. Well, we were before the reno started. More shows coming to Hamilton, you know, guaranteed because Toronto has just priced itself out.
Mhm.
You know, where can you go in Toronto at 18,000 seats? You go to Scotiabank Arena, or you go to Rogers Centre. Both are exorbitant costly. Yeah, I mean, if you're doing 20,000 seats and Rogers Centre has 45,000 seats, they're closing the top bowl, but you're still paying for the room,
Hmm.
right? And you're not selling 45,000 tickets. And if you
No.
were, then you wouldn't give a shit about the insurance.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, a positive, I guess, a positive spin to that is that, for example, I went to see FM. You know the band, the UK band FM.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, I went to see FM back in May. They played here in Buenos Aires for the first time, and they played like a really weird, like unusual venue that no one plays, and it's more of a bar, right? Not really like a music venue, but it was good because it was a really small stage and it was a really like intimate show. You could be right there up with the band because there was no like security walls or anything like that, and it was a different experience, right? It was nice. It was I really liked it, and usually, I mean, for another example would be when Molly Crew with Def Leppard came here to do the stadium tour. They did not play a stadium. They played in how do I explain? It would be like playing like in Hyde Park or the Boston Common, like big park, like all the
Like an
Central Park.
amphitheater type thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Not even that. It was like the
Oh.
stage in the middle of the park, like,
Yeah, yeah.
and of course there was security and all of that, right? It's not like just like that, but there was no like separation between like the front of there was no VIP section or anything like that. So it was more of it was a different experience. So you could, I mean, if you wanted to, you could go all the way up to the front, right? It didn't matter. Everyone paid the same, and everyone got the same experience that they wanted out of it,
Yeah.
which it was cool. It was nice. I mean, it was something that maybe you don't get to see Def Leppard that way very regularly, I think. So, it,
Do you know?
it,
Do you remember Joe Jackson
oh yeah.
signed signed to A&M Records? When Polygram bought A&M, a number of artists either left the label or were dropped. Uh,
Uh-huh.
he was one of them, and I would like to think that he left the label, but whatever. About 6 months later, he started a tour called the Workout Tour, and I went to see him in Toronto at a 700 seat club. He showed up in a van. Okay, they had a passenger van. They had a 7-piece band. They carried no PA and they carried no lights. Everything was on their riders supplied. The sound guy and the light guy would show up ahead of time, ensure that everything was set up. The musicians would show up solely with their instruments. The entire back line was supplied. So
Hmm.
these guys traveled in a van and made more money in a tour of Canada than they were doing in arenas. Go figure.
That's awesome.
And that was like probably 1990. So he had it figured out.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, he had no label support. He was on his own.
Hmm.
And I will tell you, the show was astronomical, amazing. And similar experience, Santi, to you. Like you could walk up to the stage. I mean, there was a 700-seat club. There was no. I have played that club.
Hmm.
TheWorks played there probably a year or two before him.
Nice.
So, yeah, I mean, you have to be resourceful in this industry.
Yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely. Yeah, I mean it's different. Times are really changing, definitely, but I don't know. At the same time, there's a resurgence, at least I think so, of bands and like going back to a more classic rock style and adding keyboards as well. um I don't know. I think that nowadays, at least it's coming back. The '80s are cool again on media in general.
I
So
like hearing that. That's great.
yeah, yeah. Or maybe it's just me that I'm stuck in the past, but I don't know. But yeah.
No, I mean, I see it a little bit too. There are people in the industry I still stay very close touch with.
Hmm,
Um, One of the guys that I've stayed very close with is a guy named Rick Husuni, who was a journalist for the Rock Report in Belgium.
hmm,
He was actually the first person that interviewed the works from Europe. And then we ended up through him getting, the Rock Report, Kerrang, a bunch of magazines, and some good coverage over there. And he's actually, over the course of time, been to Canada and stayed with me a number of times. Awesome dude. Um, he's he believes in this music like you guys and like me.
hmm.
He's always loved rock music. He's always loved that sort of 80s and 90s. He actually kind of had a little bit to do with the MTM release. Um, so, you know, I, it doesn't go away.
Hmm.
It's you know, without people like you guys and people like him who are active and still believe in it, if you don't have that, then it goes away.
Oh, definitely. No, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely a big audience for it. At least I see it that way. That's why I told you about the wall of silence getting so much feedback from people when I posted it. There's definitely people are wanting something different to what for the past 20 years they've been listening to, or at least for the last 20 years people were feed, right, like in music sense. um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's I see a lot of bands re-releasing their old catalog that's been out of circulation for a long time. And I don't know. That I think it will be. I think it's interesting where we are. At least I think we are in a much better place, like music speaking, musically speaking, than I don't know 10 years ago, or something like that.
Well,
um,
it makes me want to figure out a way of potentially doing a re-release.
well, that if I can push you a little bit onto towards that, that means my job is done.
You
Maybe
you just
maybe
did.
maybe press a few vinyls for the real collectors
Yeah.
out there.
Oh, 100%. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna be it's definitely gonna be at least two copies of vinyl. So so you'll have to send me your address. Listen, it's something I would
Be
you know,
cool.
I know the right person to call to see if I could do this.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I mean, I'm not lying when I tell you there's definitely an audience for it, especially if you want to do like a, I don't know, like a double do works on one side and wall of silence on the other, something like that. I think that's definitely
You know,
uh,
I got something I can show you that's pretty cool. And here's a good idea. Let me pull this out here.
full of surprises, Dave. Today,
All right.
I know what you're gonna show him. It's the
You do?
I think I do.
Let's see here.
This is great television, by the
Okay.
way.
it's excellent.
It's an idea. So the vinyl of Dangerous Toys.
Yeah.
Wow,
It has that's a company out of Germany. It has the first two albums
amazing,
together in an
yeah,
Right.
amazing. Which
awesome
company?
vinyl.
Which company did it?
This is done by. Let me see if I can see it on here. What's this company's name? Steelhammer, I think. It's pretty small.
Mhm.
Yeah, it looks like Steelhammer.
There's a few labels
Yeah.
in Europe that have been doing stuff, and it's like forever. They just sort of keep doing it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
MTM had a pretty good run. I think they're not around anymore, but they
No,
had a pretty
they're
yeah.
done. Um, but Frontiers is still happening, and
Frontiers,
mhm.
yeah, it's definitely still happening, and that's a big contender. That those guys would definitely put out a wall of silence for you. Um, I'm trying to think of others, but yeah, well, this
You have Metallic Blue. You have.
metallic blue,
Um,
that's a good
I
one
mean,
as well.
there's a lot of them.
There's
FNA.
yeah,
Yeah, but that's a different crowd, I think. But yeah, yeah, and there's a lot. There's definitely but there's music on vinyl, music on CD. Those guys, the Karen Karen
Mhm.
put out re-released their first album on vinyl through music on vinyl, uh, which is uh, which is awesome. But yeah, there's definitely an audience, and because again, being so thanks to everything being so that's a difficult word, compartmentalized. uh, you now have like all these channels for different stuff, and perhaps 15 years ago no one would care about a re-release, but I think this is the moment for that because people are starting to collect more and more, right? Like physical media,
yeah,
and,
Yeah, I mean,
and
my two kids. I have a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old, and both of them collect vinyl. We hit the
really,
record stores like we try to go every weekend. There's a couple record stores around us, and we're all different. All kinds of different music. My youngest is more into rap and like whatever new rap music is out there. I'm
hmm,
yeah,
old school with the metal punk, the whole thing. And then my oldest son, he's into like independent bands and stuff like that. Big Deftones fan. So we're all kind of all over the map when it comes to music, but
that's
it's
awesome.
it's cool that and
You know what? I would say in the last sort of 10 years, most of the new music that I'm hearing comes from the kids.
Mhm.
hmm,
Like I literally, my oldest son, um, weekly, at least once or twice a week, I get a Spotify link or I get a YouTube link.
yeah,
Um, and with some sort of comment like, go listen to this or this is fucking incredible or whatever it is,
yeah.
and so this is how I've learned to consume music. I mean, I have an account of Spotify and Amazon Music and whatever other fucking Samsung Music, whatever comes on my phone. But
Yeah,
new music for me is, like I probably would have never listened to Eminem had it not been for
Right.
my kids.
Mhm.
And kind of thankful I did. I mean, guy's brilliant. You know, do
Yeah,
I love it all? I don't love it all, but you got to, as a musician, look at that and say, holy shit, this guy's got some real serious talent.
that's the thing. When somebody's talented, they're talented. It doesn't matter what music, whatever it is. Um, you could just see it
Yeah,
and you can
100%.
feel it. And yeah, I agree with that.
We still love to listen to music,
Mhm.
you know. In fact, I was with him. They had lived in England for the last 5 years. My son and now daughter-in-law just moved back to Canada last September, so we've been able to. Uh, my girlfriend and I were traveling back and forth quite a bit while they were living there, but it's not the same. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not the
Yeah.
same as being able to drive an hour down the road.
Right.
Yeah.
So he was in town last week. We were out spending the afternoon together playing golf. And he looks at
Mm.
me on the first tee and he's like, I'm really getting into this listening to music while we play golf. And so in the golf cart, we have music playing. I mean, it's like something I would have never done ever, but just love it. And just to be surrounded by music.
Mhm.
Um, and by the way, this is a kid who, until he was 12 years old, I tried to get him to play keyboards, piano, anything. He had no interest. Uh, he's turned out to be a really good guitar player.
Huh.
Now, does it for fun, has no interest in being in a band or doing anything like that, but
Yeah.
loves to play music.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean,
The
we have
love
a
is there.
saying. We have a saying down here. I don't know if you guys have the same saying, but it's at a blacksmith's house, all the knives are dull.
Oh,
Because
we don't, but I'm going to use it. I like it. That is great.
uh, yeah, well, I have a newborn. Well, newborn. It's my daughter is a year and 4 months now. Um,
Congratulations.
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to force anything on her, but we listen to a lot of Rush on the car, and a lot a lot of music. She likes it. She'll get around to it. But yeah,
You know, it is so true, and I'm sure you'll agree. There is nothing better for the development of the
mm.
brain than music.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. You
You
can you
know,
can definitely see her like light up. It doesn't have to be rock, any type of music, right? Like baby music, whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, you can definitely see her light up and start want to dance around, and yeah, and she asks for it as well. When we get home, I pick her up from daycare. We get home and she points to the TV because she wants me to put like music on the TV or something like that.
brilliant, amazing,
Yeah,
so important.
yeah, yeah. I agree, 100%, 100%. So Stuart, to start wrapping up the episode, we always close with the same question for all the guests. If you were stranded on an island, what 5 albums would you take?
Well, I'm going to start with my keyboard albums.
Okay, good,
Trick of the Tail, Genesis,
nice.
Dark Side of the Moon.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Are you a Peter Gabriel guy or Phil Collins guy?
I like Peter Gabriel a lot. I really loved what Phil Collins did when he left. I
Hmm.
mean, for me, it was like your lead singer leaves the band's generally over.
Right.
I mean, David Lee Roth left Van Halen and Sammy wasn't really, the band was never the same.
Hmm.
And Sammy's whatever. I mean, he's a great singer and all of that stuff, but you know what?
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can see that.
Um, so and in fairness, Trick of the Tail, the songs on that record are outstanding.
Hmm.
That is some serious great songwriting.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, I'd say then I'm just going through my favorite playlist. Uh, Zeppelin 4.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, See, it's this kind of thing. Being a musician, and then 5 records.
I know. I mean, it doesn't have to be five. It can be whatever you want.
Yeah. So
But
no, I would say starting with those, and then I would say that uh, Crisis, What Crisis, Supertramp.
okay.
Um, uh, I mean, I could put 3 or 4 Pink Floyd records on there. I could put three or
Hmm.
four Genesis records. I could put 3 or 4 Supertramp records.
Hmm.
I mean, these are all bands I grew up with and loved. Um, uh, and certainly, I'm missing like 1,000 bands that I really love too. Uh,
It's hard to narrow it down.
uh, you know what? For me, it is knowing that I love music.
Yeah.
Um, uh, you know, uh, the first Eminem record. What was it? The Adventures of what's it called? Slim Shady or whatever it's called.
Yeah, the Slim
Something like
Shady
that.
LP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Marshall Mathers LP, the first one.
Yeah, yeah. And then yeah.
Fucking
Hmm.
great record, like a great record, and I can listen to that, and I do listen to that in my car regularly.
Hmm.
Um, what else do I love? Um,
Well, you can say you would take the Works album and to the
uh,
island.
you know what? I think if I had to choose, I'd probably take the Wall of Silence record.
Okay, fair.
Uh,
Good. Yeah.
um, I mean, I really love the works. I think that it's funny. I think that the Wall of Silence had songs on it that were a little more accessible to that sort of harder edge,
Hmm.
um, which I liked about that record.
Hmm.
That said, I've never had more fun in my life than recording the works.
Right. Sounds
Like
like it. Yeah.
I spent time with Tom Allen. Um, in fact, I speak to him still probably once or twice a year. I spoke to him recently when we were in London. And funny, he lives in London now. And of course, when I get to London, he's in Italy.
Hmm.
So that kind of sucked. I mean,
Wow.
uh, and he was actually going to take me to Abbey Road.
Nice.
Um,
Cool.
my son took me at least to do the walk, which everybody should do when you're in London.
Hmm.
Uh, but you can't get into Abbey Road without an invite unless you're
Right.
working. Like it's not like
Right.
you can go take a tour. And Tom happened to be in Italy, which kind of sucked. So,
Yeah.
um, but again, Wall of Silence had some pretty great songs on it.
Definitely. Definitely.
I
And
agree.
now that I know that it's gonna happen, the reissue is gonna happen.
I'm
uh,
gonna
I'm
I'm gonna
sure.
tell you, Monday
Yeah.
I'm gonna make some calls.
Okay. That works. That works. I'm
Yeah,
fine
that'd
with
be
that.
cool.
That would be cool. That would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Definitely.
not opposed to it at all. Uh,
I'd love to have that vinyl in my collection.
Listen,
Yeah.
if I'm gonna re-release, I'm gonna do at least 2 vinyl copies, one for you and one for Santi. You guys
That would
know
be
know.
awesome. That would
And
be
we'll have an
awesome.
episode and you can present them to us on the episode. And
100%. If I re-release, I want to come back.
Oh yeah, I mean,
you
for
come back
sure.
anyway.
You can come
That's
back
very nice
anytime
of
you
you.
want. You are now a friend of the show, so yeah, definitely you can come back. You're always welcome. And
We'll
and,
have a
and hey,
listening party.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and hey, it's been an honor having you here. I mean, I had a great time. You had some fantastic stories, so thank you so much for being on the show.
It's my pleasure. You guys have been awesome. Love what you're doing. Keep it alive. It's great. Really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
We're trying. We're trying.
we're trying, yeah.
It's fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna do some light editing of the episode, and then we'll put it out, and I'll let you know once the episode's out, so you
Please
can
do. I'll
share
come
it
back
with
and
me.
watch it,
Yeah, oh, for sure.
and I'll send a link to all my friends.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Yeah, spread the word.
I absolutely will. Gents, it's been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time with me.
No,
Thank you, Stuart. It's been
likewise. Yeah.
awesome.
Dave,
Yeah.
Santi, have a great weekend. Appreciate it.
You too,
You too,
man.
man.
Take care.
Take care. All the best.
Bye bye.